Now, I don't want to scare you, but that old saying that you never have a second chance to make a first impression is scientifically solid. There was a recent Harvard study that indicated that 55% of the things that people take in about first impression has to do with your appearance. 38% is your body language, your gestures, your tone of voice, and only 7% of the first impression that people have of you has to do with anything that comes out of your mouth. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, even if I don't have the best style, even if I don't speak clearly, or I have poor eye contact, or I'm not compelling, it doesn't really matter because I have the skills and the education to do this job. And all that matters is that I know how to do this job. That's absolutely incorrect. We all wish that were true, but the fact of the matter is that we are, at our core, animals. And this is how our brains work. So instead of trying to change how our brains work, let's work with that information and work it to our advantage. So why do we make first impressions? Why do we do it anyway? Well, there's two reasons. The first reason is to size the other person up. It's not about you. It's about the person who is perceiving you and receiving that information about you. They're trying to figure out if you are dangerous. They want to find out if you are friend or foe. And the second thing that we process is our position compared to the other person. So the person who is receiving information about you is trying to assess where they fall in the pecking order. So that's why appearance and mannerisms and expressions are so important. The reality is people do business with people that they like. People who they like the way they dress, they like the way they speak, they find similarities, and most importantly, people do business with people that they trust. So the entire package really does matter. So what are the 5 components of gestures? And we talk about gestures being that 38% of what people take in about us for the first impression. Well, let's start here. Hands are very important. People trust people who show their hands. And even the way that you show your hands, whether it's extended, this means that I am trustworthy, I have nothing to hide. However, putting your hands in your pockets shows that perhaps on a subliminal level you have something to hide, or maybe you're nervous. Studies even show that people who use their hands are easier to listen to. No wonder I love listening to Italians, and I could just listen to them all day long. They are the most expressive culture in all of the land. I think I'm probably part Italian. That's got to be the reason why I can't stop talking with my hands. But with everything, moderation is key. You don't want to be flailing your hands all over the place, and sometimes I'm guilty of this. Make sure that you use it in moderation. If you use your hand gestures in moderation, they have more of an impact. So not too little and not too much, just right. The second part of that 38% is eye contact. Eye contact is very, very important. Why? Again, because people do business with people that they trust. And people who have poor eye contact are often seen as less trustworthy. So what's the proper formula for eye contact? Because too little makes you seem shifty and untrustworthy. Too much eye contact, then you're making people uncomfortable because you're staring. So you want to use the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time that you are speaking to somebody, you are using good eye contact. 20% of the time, usually when you're talking, when you look away, when you're thinking, when you're looking up and looking down, or your mind is moving, then you can break eye contact. But it's very important to maintain good eye contact with the person to show them that you are listening to them and what they're saying is important. So, what is the best gaze for business? We etiquette and protocol consultants call that the business gaze. The business gaze is an upside down triangle. So you go from eye to eye and then to the mouth. An upside down inverted triangle. The higher the gaze, the more trustworthy, the more power that you exhibit. The lower the gaze, the lower the power. So, what you're going to need to do, if eye contact is something that is a challenge for you, you are going to have to just imagine that person's face with an inverted triangle and just go back and forth from eye to eye and to the mouth. And here's a little something that you might not know that may be helpful for you. So there's even an eye, whether it's right or left, if you are trying to convince somebody of something, or if you are trying to get them to feel a certain way about you, even in the way in which you look at one eye or the other can activate parts of their brain without them even knowing it. For example, if you are trying to make a social or romantic connection with somebody, then you want to focus on that left eye. That left eye is going to activate the opposite part of the brain. It's going to be the right brain, which is where the emotions lie, and friendships and deep partnerships and romantic relationships. You want to focus on that eye. When you focus on the right eye, then you're working on that left brain, the left brain that's more analytical. So perhaps you want to show that you are the most qualified for the job, that you have all the skills necessary in order for a project to succeed. You want people to trust you and take you seriously. Then maybe you want to look in that right eye, because that is the eye of logic, and the left eye is the eye of emotion. Number 3 on that 38% that have to do with gestures is your smile. It is the universal language, so make sure that you use it. It is a key factor in eliciting trust, and smiles are contagious. When you smile, the people around you want to smile. And try speaking with a smile. Even when you're on the telephone, try to smile while you're speaking, because the way that you smile while you speak has a different effect on your voice and the way that people perceive what you are saying to them. A study at Yale determined that your smile is the single most important thing that lends you a favorable impression to people. So make sure that you work on your smile. If you are insecure about your smile, if you have issues related to dental problems or things of that nature, because the smile is so important, don't let that slide. Do whatever you need to do so that you can have that $1 million smile that impacts not only how you feel about yourself, but how you impact others. The next thing about your gestures is your posture. How many times have you had to catch yourself slumping in a chair, or slouching, or trying to make yourself smaller? These are all indicators that go back to what I talked about, where people are sizing you up with between 0 and 2 seconds to see where you fall on the hierarchy in comparison to them. So if you are not sitting up straight, if you are not standing up straight, shoulders back and confident, taking up a lot of space, and you're trying to make yourself smaller, then that person is going to have the impression that you aren't powerful, that you aren't confident in yourself. So posture is extremely important to convey confidence. And also, you want to make sure that your chin is up at 90 degrees. So anything over 90 degrees, you can be considered a bit of a snob. Anything lower, Maybe you're shy. Maybe you're unsure of yourself. Maybe you lack the confidence. And these are indicators that happen at just an just a microsecond that can change the way people feel about you. Even if you're dressed to the nines and your makeup is perfect and your hair is perfect, posture is key. So remember to take up a lot of space. There's an exercise that you might want to do that I'm going to put a link below that says that just making yourself big, going into the bathroom before a presentation for 2 minutes, just getting really wide, will boost your testosterone levels, which will make you more confident, make you more assertive, and make you ready to take on the challenge like, well, a man. Now let's talk about body language. Body language speaks before we open our mouth. So, if you have poor eye contact, if you don't smile, we've already talked about that. But what about your mouth? What about frowning? What about not having an open look? Many times we think that having a serious look makes us it helps us to be taken more seriously, when in fact the look that you might have, and people call that RBF, and we all know what RBF stands for, as a signal to stay away. And that can be very dangerous, especially if you come from another culture that is different from the dominant culture. So what you should probably do, just so that you can get your muscles used to having a pleasant face, is to look at yourself in the mirror and look at yourself and give an honest look about how your face looks when you're not smiling, when you're thinking. And you might be thinking to yourself, wow, that facial expression makes me look really unapproachable. So you want to work on having a resting, pleasant face. So you want to have an RPF, not an RBF. And so you cultivate that by muscle memory and by just remembering to do it. You also want to have this face when people are talking to you and you're listening. One thing about body language, please, 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 in this age of technology, we all have our phones in our hands, and many times our phone is used as our security blanket. We hope that it conveys that we are busy, that we have a lot of things going on, that we're not bored, that we have better things to do. When in reality, what it does is just show that you're not interested in the people around you or the people in front of you. So when you're having a conversation and you want to be taken seriously and you want the person who is speaking to you to feel important, put your phone away. And if you have the opportunity, show the person that you're putting your phone away, because that gives the subliminal signal that what they have to say is much more important than what's in that little computer in your purse. Now, the final thing about your appearance and your gestures and all of that is your style. Are you dressed appropriately for the occasion? Are you following protocol? With etiquette and manners and protocol, the thing that I have learned in my certification and in my education is that there is truly a time and place for everything. So what is very, very important is to make sure that you are properly dressed, not only for the occasion, but for the attitude and psychology in which you want to convey about yourself. It's part of your personal branding. We're going to talk more about style and fashion when it comes to personal branding and even color psychology. All of those components are important when you're trying to convey a certain message. All of that is important. You don't show up at an interview with stilettos. There's a time and a place for everything. And we'll get more into detail on that. But I want you to know that the great thing about dressing well and dressing appropriately is that it really does boost your confidence. It makes you more of who you are. It is your armor. So please don't take that for granted. Please don't fall into the trap of thinking that it's all about what you have in here, when in fact, it's all about everything. All right, continue with this unit and make sure that you follow the instructions that are written and take the quiz at the end.